Ian Bremmer, Superpower, 3 Choices for America's Role in the World. Embark on a thought-provoking journey as we explore Ian Bremmer's Superpower, 3 Choices for America's Role in the World, a compelling examination of America's past, present, and potential future as a global leader. In this insightful work, Bremmer scrutinizes the nation's historical trajectory as a superpower, grappling with both isolation and intervention. Learn how the United States emerged as the unchallenged leader of the democratic world, despite its numerous fault lines and controversial decisions. Delve into the 3 possible paths the country faces today as it navigates through an increasingly complex and interconnected world, contending with diverse challenges like political unrest, public health, and terrorism.
The United States' ambiguous path. The U.S. has struggled to maintain its position as a superpower and has faced obstacles that have damaged its credibility. The country has oscillated between isolation and intervention depending on the conflict's size. For example, in World War I and II, the U.S. waited to act and preserved human and financial resources. Sacrificing resources to create peace and prosperity helped the United States emerge as a leader in the democratic world. However, the U.S. has made some ill-fated military decisions in Korea and Vietnam that ruined its unblemished record. This created a less aggressive superpower and confused citizens about how to respond to geopolitical turmoil. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, the U.S. ousted Iraqi soldiers from Kuwait. This act, which boosted then-President George H.W. Bush's approval rating, suggested that the U.S. had kicked the Vietnam syndrome. By yanking U.S. troops out of Somalia after the Black Hawk Down episode occurred, America's enemies noticed that Americans would turn their back at the slightest defeat. In the end, it led to terrorist attacks against the U.S.'s embassies, Navy ship, and the World Trade Center. Barack Obama, who followed George W. Bush, inherited a country that was exhausted from wars and hobbled by fruitless Middle East battles. As the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq wound down, voters no longer supported the country's involvement in wars of choice. Today, the U.S. faces 3 options: should it retreat into isolationism and forget about international affairs? Should it continue as the global enforcer, regardless of the cost? Or should it pursue the middle ground and evaluate carefully whether to engage in a conflict? The answer to this question remains unclear, but the U.S. moved away from incoherent America, which confused citizens about how to navigate global events, in 2015. The true cost of America's military power. Despite having no credible threats from superpowers, America's military spending remains inflated and has led to a military-industrial complex. The U.S. polices conflicts worldwide instead of focusing on building its infrastructure and public services. Other countries expect America to go into harm's way, which has led to an overreach of American power. The costs of war have been desensitized to U.S. voters, and the nation pays for the war machine abroad while shortchanging its children at home. The U.S. must reconsider its role as the world security force and focus on rebuilding its own country. The Moneyball approach to foreign affairs. In Moneyball, Michael Lewis explains how the Oakland A's revolutionized baseball by using data analysis to identify and recruit undervalued players. This same approach can be applied to foreign affairs, where the U.S. should use a rigorous calculus to determine its actions. The U.S. should ask important questions such as whether a war serves its interests, if there is a clear goal, whether policymakers have analyzed costs and risks accurately, and whether there is a peaceful alternative. The U.S. should reject American exceptionalism and nation-building and instead focus on recruiting allies, imposing sanctions, negotiating with unsavory dictators, and using methods that risk as few American lives as possible. The use of drones is an example of the Moneyball approach in action. America's leadership role in a globalized world. The world has changed, and isolationism is not a valid option for the U.S. As the dominant power, the country must lead in creating a peaceful and prosperous planet. Health and human rights are crucial factors in achieving this goal. The U.S. needs to address global warming, cyberterrorism, and organized crime. It cannot afford to ignore rogue nations' nuclear ambitions or allow terrorists to act without consequences. The U.S. economy is intertwined with China's, and China's prosperity relies on the U.S.'s success. Public health concerns such as Ebola and bird flu require the U.S. to take an active, global leadership role. America must set an example abroad, despite its imperfections. Military engagements may be messy, but they are necessary for living in a civilized world.
Having traversed the pages of Ian Bremmer's Superpower, we are left with a deeper understanding of America's unique position in the world and the vital choices before it. As a nation, the United States has historically wielded immense power, frequently vacillating between isolation and intervention in global affairs. Today, the country faces three potential paths, grappling with its role as the world's policeman and the pursuit of its national interests. Despite the complex challenges that lie ahead, America's dedication to open economies, global prosperity, and peace indicates that the nation will continue to have a crucial impact on the world stage. Ultimately, the lessons from a superpower encourage us to broaden our perspectives on global leadership and acknowledge the urgency of informed, strategic decision-making for the future.